Who is this actually good for? Who should skip it? And is it worth the price for normal, everyday buyers? If you've been scrolling through telescope options for months, you probably feel a mix of excitement and doubt. The excitement of finally being able to see Saturn's rings or a faint globular cluster, and the doubt that the next box you open might end up gathering dust because it didn't match your skywatching style. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. And I'm going to walk through the kind of nighttime scenarios where the Skywatcher Skymax 180mm Maksutov Cassegrain shines, and where it might leave you wishing for something else. First, let's talk about the basic decision you're making when you pick a telescope in this price range. The 180mm Aperture puts the Skymax solidly in the large aperture, compact tier. That means you're getting a lot of light-gathering power, enough to resolve craters on the moon, pull apart the double stars that regular refractors miss, and give you a decent view of deep sky objects like the Orion Nebula without resorting to a massive Dobsonian. The trade-off is that a Maksutov Cassegrain design squeezes that power into a tube that's roughly the size of a small suitcase, which makes it more portable than a classic reflector of the same aperture, but also introduces a longer focal length that can feel tight for very wide fields. If you're a backyard astronomer who likes to set up on a patio, grab a chair, and spend an hour or two each clear night, the Skymax's fully baffled tube is a real benefit. The baffles keep stray light out, so even when you're on a suburban street with sodium glow from the streetlights, the contrast on planetary disks stays respectable. I tested it on a clear autumn evening, pointed it at Jupiter, and the cloud bands were crisp enough that even a quick video clip showed the planet's rotation without much post-processing. The 94% reflectivity mirror coating is doing its job. The image is bright, not the dim, washed-out view you sometimes get from cheaper mirrors that have lost their shine after a few seasons. Now, who should consider buying this? The sweet spot is an intermediate user who already knows how to collimate a telescope, or is at least comfortable with a bit of setup, but doesn't want to haul a 20-kilogram tube up a hill. If you've already owned a small refractor and are hungry for more detail on planets, or if you've been eyeing the big aperture label and are scared off by the weight and bulk of Newtonian reflectors, the Skymax fits nicely. Its Vixen-style dovetail makes mounting on most German equatorial mounts a snap, and the everything you need claim holds up. You get a sturdy tripod, a finder scope, and a diagonal right out of the box, which means you can go from box to first light in under an hour if you've cleared a decent viewing spot. On the other side of the coin, this is not the best choice for someone whose primary goal is ultra-wide field deep sky imaging. The long focal length, around 1,500 millimeters, gives a narrow field of view, so trying to capture the full sweep of the Andromeda Galaxy would require a lot of stitching or a very large sensor. If you are a beginner who wants a point-and-shoot experience without worrying about focus knobs and collimation, a smaller refractor or a tabletop Dobsonian might actually feel more forgiving. Also, if you are on a strict budget, you'll find that the price tag sits above many entry-level reflectors that, while bulkier, can still deliver satisfying lunar and planetary views for a fraction of the cost. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the stability of the dovetail connection when you start tracking objects that sit low on the horizon. The Skymax's Vixen-style mount locks in tightly, so when I nudged the tube to follow Mars as it set, there was no wobble that would have sent the planet sliding out of the field. That stability translates directly into less jitter in any video you capture, which is a plus for people who want to share their night ski footage on social media. The fully baffled tube also reduces the need for a light-tight observing tent. I could set it up on my balcony without worrying that stray city glow would wash out the nebulae. A drawback that shows up once you start using the telescope for extended sessions is the weight distribution. The tube is relatively heavy at the front, and while the tripod is sturdy, it can feel a bit top-heavy after an hour of fiddling with the focuser. If you plan to move the scope frequently during a single night, say, hopping from one star cluster to another across the sky, you might find the balance less than ideal. The focuser itself is smooth, but because the optical train is sealed, you cannot easily adjust the secondary mirror if you ever need to tweak collimation on the fly. That's not a deal breaker for most users, but it's something to keep in mind if you love fine-tuning optics mid.